Hey guys, so we are back with another chapter from Super Gifted. I keep trying to say ungifted. I know what the title is, but that's what's happening. So, again, Super Gifted by Gordon Corman, and we're looking at chapter 6, Super Loyal, from the perspective of Noah Euclid. The lacrosse field resounded with the roar of the crowd, the referee's whistles, and the shouts of the players. I was really doing it. Cheerleading, and it was the greatest experience of my life. There could be no more amazing sport than lacrosse, which combined all the best elements of the other sports. The ball was baseball ish, the pads were football ish, the nets were hockey ish, and the cleats were soccer ish. The shorts were basketball ish, and the sticks were kind of butterfly net ish because they had little webbed pouches for passing and catching. With all it had to offer, I couldn't understand why lacrosse wasn't the national pastime. On YouTube, which was normally so sensible, there were far fewer lacrosse videos than all of those inferior sports. I guess even YouTube could fall short every once in a while. The only thing better than lacrosse was cheerleading for it. I only got injured once when the integrity of my cartwheel disintegrated. As I collapsed, my foot slammed into something hard and I experienced a sharp pain in 3 of 5 metatarsals. Those are toes. But I carried on bravely. The loud "ow" came not from me, but from Vanessa Mulcair, whose face turned out to be something hard I'd injured my metatarsals on. Will you get a clue? Megan yelled at me. As head cheerleader, it was her job to provide helpful coaching while the game was going on. There was this YouTube video called Playing Through Pain that inspired me to ignore my throbbing foot and cheer louder, even when my throat began to hurt worse than my toes. In the world of sports, this was known as giving 110%, although it was a mathematical impossibility. When the clock ran out, I jumped for joy, throwing my pom poms in the air, although they didn't go very high. Megan, our captain, turned furious eyes on me. Shut up! Everyone will think we're nuts. I was mystified. We're cheerleaders. It's our job to lead the cheers for glorious victory. We didn't have a glorious victory. Can't you read a scoreboard? Indeed, I can, I replied. When your team scores a plurality of goals, you win. Arithmetic dictates that 15 is greater than 3. Therefore, we are the winners. I almost added, quod erat demonstratum, but I remembered the last minute that Latin wasn't too popular in the cheerleading business. Megan's face was the thundercloud. Only we didn't have the 15. We had the 3. But it says H for Hornets. The look she gave me would have melted steel. H is for home, not Hornets. We're the visitors, Noah, the V number. Obviously, there was a lot more to cheerleading than I'd previously thought. It certainly explained why the girls had seemed so subdued on the sidelines. On the bus to school, I apologized to my fellow cheerleaders. I'm researching this whole home visitors thing. I'll get it right next time. Next time? Repeated Vanessa, holding the ice pack to her cheek. The only other boy on the bus was Taggart, with his arm in a sling. He couldn't play today, so he didn't have to stick around for Coach Franco's post-game session. For some reason, he told everyone that his injury came from getting his arm caught in a car door. No, it didn't, I told him. You were bitten by a dog. It was a car door, he said between clenched teeth. It was Beatrice. Don't you remember? She attacked you for punching Donovan Curtis. Curtis. Practically spat. This is all his fault. I'm going to get back at that guy if it's the last thing I do. People always said that the academy was much harder than Hardcastle Middle School, but this was a perfect illustration of why they were wrong. This situation couldn't be solved like an equation. It required a higher level of analysis, social analysis. Number 1, wasn't threatening me at all. He liked me. Everybody did. But, number 2, I owed it to Donovan to warn him that the captain of the lacrosse team had it out for him. Because, 3, when you had friends, you had to be loyal to them, even when it wasn't your problem. Thus, 4, what I said to Donovan at school the next morning. Hashtag's going to get even with you, I told him. I don't think you have to worry about it right away, though. He said it's going to be the last thing he does. Donovan sighed. Yeah, I kind of figure after what happened in the park that it wasn't over yet. especially when I heard he might be out for the whole lacrosse season. What are you going to do? I asked. I shrugged. I'll steer clear of the guy. He's just a bully. Not much else I can do. I once saw a YouTube video called Stand Up to Bullies. He shook his head. Not an option. Hashtag's parents have pictures of the bite marks on his arm, and Mrs. Taggart pretty much threatened to report Beatrice to animal control. If there's another scrape between Hashtag and me, you can take that to the bank. I could see that it was a real dilemma for poor Donovan. He was being wronged, but he couldn't take action to right that wrong without putting Beatrice's life in danger. Then something strange happened. When I solved an impossible math problem, or came up with a flawless argument for an English essay, or explained an anomaly in a chemistry experiment, it was like the easiest, most natural thing in the world, like flicking a bug off your arm. This was different. When I came up with the solution, it was completely unexpected. A sudden sunrise over a mountain range, a brainstorm. I'll do it for you, I exclaimed. Do what for me? He asked. You can't stand up to Hashtag because of Beatrice, I exclaimed breathlessly. But I can. Donovan laughed in my face. Don't be crazy, he'll kill you. He would today, I agreed. That's why it's a good thing we have plenty of time. I intend to use mine wisely. His eyes narrowed. Wisely how? The key to any confrontation is having the best strategy. No, he told me. The key is a hard right to the head. He rubbed his jaw, which was still a little bruised. Hashtag has it. I'm living proof of that. You don't want to join the club. When the time comes, I promised, I'll be ready. I'll tell Hashtag that he'd better not be mean to my friend Donovan. It'll be just like Stand Up to Bullies. I grabbed my arm. Cut it out, Noah. This kid could do a lot of damage without even meaning to hurt you very much. Promise me you'll stay away from him. I could tell he was 100% serious. He wasn't going to let me go until I gave him my word. I promise. I lied. Lying was another excellent skill I'd picked up since coming to Hardcastle Middle. There hadn't been much call for it at the academy, but here you could make use of it dozens of times a day. For example, when somebody confronted you with, "Hey dork, are you looking at me?" it was generally better to say no. Or in this case, where I lied because I didn't want Donovan to worry about me. I'd be fine. Before confronting Hashtag, I would learn the art of self-defense from the greatest gladiators the world had ever known, WWE wrestlers. And I knew exactly where to find them, in the same place of all the true secrets of humanity that are just waiting to be accessed, YouTube. My YouTube search for keyword WWE yielded over 13 million hits. With an average length of over 4 minutes per video, I obviously wouldn't be able to watch all of them. But I was able to see enough to learn how to handle myself if things got ugly with Hashtag. The average wrestler was 6'4" and 250 pounds. I wasn't going to be able to bulk up to that level on such short notice, so I zeroed in on the concepts that applied to everybody: speed, explosiveness, focus, muscle power, and the element of surprise. There were important moves to be mastered: choke slams, pile drivers, sleeper holds, spine busters, clotheslines, and frog splashes. Also, it never hurt to have a steel folding chair handy in case you had to break it over somebody's head. Every day after cheerleading practice, I'd rush home and spend hours in front of the computer drinking it all in. At night, when I was supposed to be sleeping, I practiced against my pillow. Once, while taking out the garbage, I powerbombed a green bag. It exploded, sending chicken bones and orange peels all over the lawn. My mother said our property smelled like the town dump, but to me it smelled like victory. And anyway, she helped me clean it up, so it only cost me 45 minutes of YouTube research. I considered the best place to make my move on Hashtag. School had its advantages. For one thing, there was always a lot of chairs around, but also a lot of people. Too many, in fact. No, this had to happen somewhere more private. I don't know where he lived, but that was no problem. I hacked into the school computer and got his address, 42 Saunton Street, about a half a mile from my house. I calculated that the optimal time would be Saturday morning around 7 a.m. when most people would still be in bed. With my plans set, keeping excitement to myself was almost more than I could bear. I was dying to tell someone about it, but the only person I could think of was Donovan, and the whole reason for the lie was to keep him in the dark. I woke up at 5:30 that morning with such a singleness of purpose. I had my outfit all set. Unfortunately, I couldn't find my Speedo, so I substituted long underwear from when I was 8, super tight, very WWE. Up top, I wore a sweatshirt that I'd carefully cut open with a pair of scissors so it was only closed by a few threads. It took me hours, but it was totally worth it. If hashtag got physical, I could tear it off in a heartbeat. That's absurd. Just like the real superstars did. Since I had no wrestling gloves, I substituted the gloves Mom used for gardening. I tried to cut off the fingertips, but the fabric was really thick. On my feet, I wore patent leather dress shoes, but I blackened the bottom of my long underwear with spray paint so it would look like boots. Oh my goodness, can you even imagine seeing this? This is too much. I was ready by 5:45, so I had to cool my heels for a while. If I got there too early, hashtag might still be in bed, and maybe his parents wouldn't want to disturb him. At 6:45, Mom and Dad were sleeping, and I tiptoed downstairs and eased myself outside, careful not to bang the folding chair. I'm sorry. Careful not to bang the folding chair under my arm against the storm door. Jackpot. The neighborhood was deserted. No kids playing around, no kids playing outside. All the way from my house to Staunton Street, the only sign of life was a single car. It drove past me, screeched to a halt, and backed up. The rear door opened, and one of the kids named Daniel jumped out. I could never tell the two of them apart. Noah, is that you? He demanded. Why are you dressed like that? I could ask you the same question, I retorted. He was in a suit and tie. He had no chair, obviously, not unless the seats in the car counted. We're on our way to my cousin's bar mitzvah, he explained. Where are you going so early? And what's up with the folding chair? I hesitated. This was supposed to be top secret. I'm a morning person, I told him. I'm just taking a walk. The chair is in case I get tired. Don't give me that. What are you up to? Nothing, I said casually, but he didn't seem so convinced. Come on, Daniel, came a woman's voice from the car. We're going to be late. Yeah, Mom, but remember when I told you about this kid? Now. It definitely wasn't a suggestion. He got back in the car. Even as they drove away, I could see him, face pressed against the window, staring at me. They disappeared down the road, turning toward the highway. I breathed a sigh of relief. My plan was still on. All right. Can you imagine seeing him walking down the road? Chapter 7, Superhero, from the perspective of Donovan Curtis. For a surefire alarm clock, you couldn't do much better than dog slobber. Cut it out, Beatrice, I complained, burying my head deeper into my pillow to avoid the chow-chow's slimy tongue. It did the trick for about 30 seconds. The next thing I knew, I felt a strange buzzing against the back of my neck, pulsing on and off like... My phone? I flipped over in bed, dislodged my cell phone from the dog's mouth. It was set on mute, but there was no mistaking the vibration of an incoming call. Who could be trying to reach me now? Which of my friends would be awake at 6:52 on a Saturday morning? I squinted to bring the caller ID into focus. Daniel N. Nussbaum. I snatched up the unit, wiped the drool off my comforter, and mumbled. What? Donovan, are you asleep? Yeah? My reply was bitter. I'm right in the middle of a bad dream about some idiot waking me up at the crack of dawn. Listen, I just saw Noah. And I should care about this because, I prompted with a yawn. He was dressed all funny, like thermal ballet tights and forget it. I'll never describe it right. And he had a chair? A chair? And that look on his face. You know the one where he's about to do something dumber than usual? Noah's IQ was actually higher than the two Daniels put together, with mine thrown in for good measure, but I'll let it pass. I thought you and Sanderson were done looking out for Noah, I interrupted. It was too much of a hit on your image, remember? We were. It's just that he was just starting down Staunton Street. So, isn't that where hashtag lives? The pieces fell into place with a painful chunk. The world's greatest genius was making good on his promise to stand up to my bully for me. After I specifically made him swear that he wouldn't. The ballet tights in the chair were a little confusing, but hey, this was Noah. There didn't have to be a reason. And if he showed up at the Taggart's doorstep in this hour for a fight with hashtag, what was left of him would be delivered to his parents in an eyedropper. I'm on it, I wheezed in the phone and broke the connection. I leaped out of bed and threw on my jeans and a shirt. Candy was asleep in his usual position, on his back with his giant paws splayed in all directions. But Beatrice was watching me with some keen interest, as if she'd never seen a human act so agitated before. Beatrice. Oh no. Thanks to Beatrice, I wasn't allowed anywhere near Noah or near Taggart. If I went over there to protect Noah and hashtag and I got into a beef, there could be curtains for Beatrice and definitely curtains for me when Brad found out. No way I could go there. On the other hand, how could I not? It was my fault Noah was at Hardcastle Middle. Sure, he got himself kicked out of the academy, but if it hadn't been for me, he would never have managed it. If he got himself beaten to a pulp by hashtag, in the end it was on my head. I couldn't let it happen. I headed for the door. Squeak? I looked down. The bow wow bone sorry. The bow wow bone peeked out from under my sneaker. My eyes traveled to the slumbering Candy. He was stirring. If he woke up, he'd head straight for his favorite toy. When he really got going with that thing, it could disturb the whole house. The last thing I needed was for Brad to search for me and find me on one street I wasn't supposed to go on. I carefully tweezered the bow wow bone between my thumb and forefinger and eased it slightly into my pocket. Candy rolled over and turned to sleep. I tiptoed out the door and hit the sidewalk running. Staunton Street was at least a mile away, but I sprinted the full distance. Maybe I should have taken Brad up on a couple of those early morning runs. My lungs were on fire when I rounded the corner, hoping against hope I wasn't too late. No, there he was, plodding up the sloping pavement, the weight of the chair under his arm, bending him over to the right. Newspawn wasn't kidding. Those tight pants were practically spray painted onto the skinniest legs in Hardcastle. From the bottom of the hill, he looked like a candy apple with an extra stick in it. Even among geniuses, Noah was special. Struggling for breath, I rasped, "Noah!" He turned, spied me, and hurried on. What a kid. He was determined to get himself massacred on my behalf. Gasping for breath I no longer had, I pounded up the steep street. Stop! I tried to call, but it came out a pathetic wheeze. Forget it. I was going to have to physically tackle the kid on hashtag's front walk. Half dead, I overtook Noah from behind and clapped my arms to his puny shoulders. I had no wind left, so I just stood there, sucking air and holding on to him for dear life. He had the nerve to pretend to be surprised to see me. Hey, Donovan, I didn't know you got up this early. There were a lot of things I could have said to that, but all I had breath for was, go home. He tried to spin away, and his entire sweatshirt tore down the middle and wound up in my hands. All at once, I realized what his get-up was supposed to be. The folding chair was a telltale sign. He was a WWE wrestler, bare chest, tights, and boots. Except he didn't have much of a chest. He had ribs, though. You could count every last one of them. This mental giant honestly believed that if he dressed like a wrestler, he could intimidate a guy like hashtag. I would have laughed in his face, except for the fact that he was doing this all for me. In my family, I may have been lower in the pecking order than a deranged chow chow and her mongrel pup. But to this crazy kid, I was worth risking life and limb for. How could I yell at him? If I had enough young lung power left for yelling. Noah, I said gently, if you take on hashtag, you will be a grease spot on the sidewalk. He shook his head vehemently. I've been training. Watching The Undertaker on YouTube isn't training. A tanker truck came laboring up the hill, gears grinding. I guided Noah back a few steps, and the truck made a wide three-point turn reversal into the sloped driveway just ahead of us. The logo on the tank read, Ogden Propane Delivery. In an obvious hurry, the driver jumped down from the cab and snaked a long hose around the side of the house, disappearing from view. A minute later, a mechanical pump began to hum. Noah frowned. That truck's not safely parked. Look who was thinking about safety all of a sudden, I retorted. You're about to fight a grizzly bear. I heard only partial application of the parking brake, Noah explained. The slope of that driveway is at least 27 degrees, which means the weight of the tanker is exerting considerable force on the truck's transmission. Noah, I began warningly. Noah didn't miss a beat. Since it's early in the day, logic dictates that this must be one of his first deliveries. We therefore conclude that the tank is mostly full. So based on the average density of liquid propane, worry about the average Okay. Worry about the average density of hashtag's fist, I interjected. And assuming a tank capacity of 6,000 US gallons, the maximum capability of the braking system should be exceeded just about, he paused to calculate in his head, now. Don't change the subject, Noah. There was a snap and the truck lurched. With a crunch of tires, the big propane tanker began to roll forward down the steep driveway. Uh-oh. Mister! I called around the side of the house. My breath had not fully returned, so I wasn't sure I could be heard over the sound of the pump. Hey, mister! The tanker rolled out into the street, picking up speed. Heart sinking, I watched as the slope of the hill aimed it across the road towards a large Tudor-style home on the other side of Staunton. Mister! Where was the driver? I could see the hose unrolling from its spool as the truck headed for the opposite curb. The guy had no idea of the disaster that was unfolding out here. When the tank smashed into that home, there was no time to think. In a full-blown panic, I took off after the truck. I jumped into the running board right as the front tires bumped onto the lawn, heading straight for the house. I reached my arms into the open window and grabbed the steering wheel, tearing a dangling St. Christopher medal off the visor. I got both hands on the wheel and yanked in an attempt to avoid the building. The steering mechanism was locked. The truck continued on its path, rumbling down the grade of the lawn towards a large picture window set into a brick wall. Desperately, I scanned the cab. The engine was set in park, which explained why the wheel wouldn't turn. I threw myself forward, got my hand on the gear shift, and yanked the control into N for neutral. My momentum, my momentum sent me tumbling headfirst into the tanker with my legs still flailing out the window. By the time I lifted my face off the seat, the brick wall filled the windshield, coming up fast. There was only 1 second to act, and I did. I wrenched the wheel hard left. The truck responded instantly. It shaved the corner of the house, snapping off the passenger side mirror. It smashed through a wooden fence, roared across the backyard, and took a nosedive into a large swimming pool. Amazed to still be alive, I struggled out of the sinking cab, banging my head against the top of the window opening. Don't faint, I said. You'll drown. By the time I swam to the side and opened my stinging eyes, something large and metal was swinging at my nose. I ducked out of its way and resurfaced to see Noah holding the folding chair out over the water. Grab this and I'll rescue you. I don't need rescuing, I shot back. Grab it. So I did. Instead of pulling me out, Noah toppled over the side into the pool beside me. I can't swim, he burbled. Why didn't I know that? Treading water, I dragged him to the side and hauled the two of us out onto the deck. We lay there for a second, panting. A huge bubble blurped from the cab of the truck as it sank to the bottom. You're a hero, Noah told me in an awed tone. I can't be, I hissed. I'm not allowed to be here. If it wasn't for you, the truck would have hit the house and exploded. I scrambled to my feet, pulling him up with me. If I get caught on hashtag street, Beatrice is dead meat. No one can find out about this. But Donovan, promise you won't tell anyone, I choked at him. An anguished voice sounded in the distance. My truck! I could hear the driver's heavy footfalls as he pounded across Staunton Street. I grabbed Noah, boosted him over the fence to the next yard, and clambered after him. Noah looked down at my hand. What's that? I checked. It was the St. Christopher medal from the truck, the broken chain still tangled around my fingers. I ripped it off and dropped it to the grass. Noah picked it up. It's a souvenir of your heroism, he exclaimed. Stop saying that. I peered through a knothole in the fence as the tanker driver burst into the backyard. When he took in the spectacle of his truck at the bottom of the pool, he let fly a series of words that would have sent my mother running for a sponge to wash his mouth out with soap. The back door of the house slid open and four seriously agitated, pajama-clad people ran out, a mother, a father, and two kids. At the sight of the tanker in the pool, the boy, who looked about 10, dashed back inside, returned with a phone, and started snapping pictures. He had a slight limp that got worse when he ran. What happened here? The dad demanded. The driver was almost too upset to speak. I thought the brake could handle it, but the slope was too steep. Unable to finish the explanation, he gestured around the front and across the street, indicating the path that his truck had taken. The family stared at the deep tire tracks that crossed the lawn all the way back to the pool deck. It's a miracle, the mother breathed. It could have destroyed our home, but it turned at the last minute. It was no miracle, the driver told her. It was that kid. What kid? The father asked. I didn't get a good look at him, the driver admitted. I only saw his feet. His feet? Mom queried. He jumped into the cab and steered around your house with his feet sticking out the window, like one of those Olympic swimmers cutting through the water, a scissor kick. Bravest, craziest thing in the world. He must be some kind of super kid. Super kid? Repeated the daughter. I was just reflecting that the sound of that she sounded kind of familiar when Noah took my spying place at the knothole and whispered, "It's Megan from cheerleading." "Shh," I hissed sternly. He was right. Megan Mercury. I'd forgotten she and Hashtag were neighbors. Of all the houses in town, I'd have to save the one belonging to the alpha big mouth in school. Megan's mom switched on the pool lights and everyone took a close look at the submerged truck. Thank goodness there's nobody down there. This wonderful boy may very well have saved all our lives. It would be awful if it cost him his own. But why would he leave after doing such an incredible thing? My father mused. The father mused. He deserved to be honored for it. Is that a chair? The son asked in amazement. Was he sitting down when he saved us? Don't be stupid, Megan snapped at him. This is serious. We've got a real hero in our town. Don't you think it's important to find out who he is? Well, I didn't think it was important. On the contrary, there was nothing more important than keeping the hero's identity a deep, dark secret. And when I heard police sirens in the distance, that became job one. I grabbed Noah, we snaked through backyards, climbing over fences and wrestling our way through hedges to put as much distance as possible between us and this act of heroism. We were soaked to the skin, scratched from head to toe, and covered in mud and grass when I left him at his front door. Remember, act natural, I told him, and then realized that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever said. He was shivering and shirtless, in long underwear plastered to his skinny body, and dripping what looked like black paint all around his dress shoes. There was definitely nothing normal about him. He regarded me gravely. Donovan, I will never forget what I saw you do today. I lost my temper. You have to forget it, because it never happened. He reached under the waistband of his long johns and drew out the St. Christopher medal. This will always be my most prized possession. Hide it, I practically yelled. Swear to me, Noah, that you'll never tell anyone I was the guy who jumped into that truck and saved the Mercury house. But Donovan, people should know. Swear. All right, I swear. I swear on the memory of Einstein, Max Planck, and Sir Isaac Newton. And I had to be satisfied with that. At home, I caught my first break of the entire morning. No one was up, and I was able to sneak back into my room unseen except by Beatrice. She lifted her fuzzy head from where she was sleeping next to Candy and greeted me with a swish of her tail. The world almost ended today, kiddo, I told her, but I think we got away with it. Man, did I dream big. Alrighty. That was a long one. We'll pick up tomorrow.